Hi, I'm Drew Maness, and welcome to the first episode of Hacking the Fat Man. This podcast is my journey from 550 pounds to what I hope will be 175 pounds. I'm currently sitting at 233, having lost over 300 pounds over the last few years. Before I get started, I have a trigger warning. In this episode specifically, I'll be talking about my eating disorders, my depression, and my suicidal ideation, which some may find distressing. If you're interested in none of that but want to know about the diet, please go to episode 2. In episode 2, I will be covering the diet in depth, so I look forward to seeing you there. In August 2022, I walked into a motel room attached to my favorite dive bar from college with the full intention of taking my life. This presentation is how I went from sitting in that room weighing almost 500 pounds, about to end my life, to standing in front of you today. Now down over 300 pounds and feeling great. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in that room, but I will give us some background of how I got there. But before I get us out of that room, let me give you the background just for context. So hi, I'm Drew. I'm a hacker. 0x90nop is my handle. I'm also an information security professional. I spent 25 years, mostly in media and entertainment. First as part of Disney's first information security team. Then on to Technicolor, Universal Music, and Activision Blizzard, most recently where I was their Business Information Security Officer. I'm currently now the Senior Director of Search, which is a security engineering, architecture, risk compliance, and human. It's a combined SecArc-Eng GRC function for a company called Avid Exchange. I was also a former high school water polo player and swimmer, and I'm giving you this as context. I didn't just play water polo and swim. I did it at the highest level of the sport. In the early 80s, when I was in high school, the center of U.S. water polo was in California, specifically in Southern California, and I could probably argue Orange County and even down to my league that I played in. A number of the coaches in my league went on to that I played against went on to coach the U.S. men's and women's national team. A number of players went on to play for the team, and there was a while there I knew almost every single U.S. national team member. I also coached for a few years. First at my alma mater in Costa Mesa, we won. They won. I had really nothing to do with it. In '87, they won the CIF championship, and in 1990, I went to Laguna Hills High School, where I took over the boys and girls swimming and water polo program. And the boys team won CIF in 1990, and I was named Orange County Coach of the Year, Swimming Coach of the Year by the Orange County Register. The next year in '91, we followed up, but we came a few points short and only made runner-up, but I was again named Orange County Coach of the Year, Swimming Coach of the Year by the Orange County Register. Which leads me to the first question I usually get. How the hell does someone with that knowledge get to be 550 pounds? And I'm going to tell you it was because I did not recognize my depression. I did not recognize what I actually thought about myself, and I'll get into that a little bit more. I really didn't know I had depression. If you'd asked me as I was walking into that room if I was depressed, I would tell you no, even though I probably did have a hint that I might have a little bit of depression. See, as an athlete, and I'm also an elder Gen X, we're taught to ignore our feelings. We're taught to tell our mind to shut up and move on, and that's what I was doing. So whatever was going on in my subconscious, I was just ignoring it. During my swimming days, I had some skill, not a whole lot. I know that I'm not the prototypical water polo player, but I was really good at using oxygen. I could do underwater 3 laps, 75 yards. I also had my endurance was off the chart. In fact, one time in college, we had this get out swim where I had to do 3 laps underwater to get out of workout. And I hit the 50, pushed off, and proceeded to pass out underneath the water. Luckily, most water polo players and swimmers are lifeguards, so I had about 30 lifeguards jumping in trying to save me, and I'm here now. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I'm bringing this up because my subconscious this whole time, even though I played polo, I was good, my subconscious hated me and told me I was weak, I was lazy, I was pathetic. I was a wimp. And a lot of it stemmed from the fact that I couldn't control my weight. I've struggled with my weight even while I was a swimmer. I was always heavy through the years, and even though I was doing the same workout as the Greek Adonis is sitting next to me, I still had a couple of pounds. Let me show you. So I'm lucky that I haven't been overweight my entire life. I have been thin. There have been times I've been thin, but let's get to what's going on there. So kindergarten through second grade, I'm your normal average size kid. In third grade, I couldn't find pictures for third and eighth grade. I think because that was a period where I was really overweight. And anyway, so I have Cartman there for third grade. Third grade is when my weight started coming on. When I started eighth grade, I've got Butterball there, and my teammates are laughing right now. I was 4'9". I was 4'9", 150 pounds at the start of eighth grade, and this guy shows up, and he tells us that he's starting a water polo club at the high school next door. And if any of us wanted to go join the club, we didn't have to do PE. I had no idea what water polo was, but if I didn't have to go into that hell that is the middle school locker room and change, sign me up for it. So I went and signed up for water polo. The 8.5 there, that's the winter formal in eighth grade, and I'll stand by that tux selection any day of the week. That was rocking. That still is rocking. I'd still wear it today. At this point, I'm now 5'2" and 150 pounds. Fast forward a couple years into 10th grade, I'm 5'9" and 150 pounds. Sounds great, Drew. You've got it all in control. The problem is I did all that with anorexia and bulimia. I went 3 weeks straight trying to without eating. It's a fantastically horrible way to try to work out or to become a better player. But yet I did it. And it was, you can't keep doing that, right? You can't keep doing, at least I couldn't keep doing the anorexia and the bulimia. Bulimia is horrible. So by the time I hit my senior year with the 12th grade, which is those pictures up there, I had gotten weight back. And so I graduated high school at about 225 pounds. The picture right there, the 1985 picture, is my Orange Coast water polo team. We actually took the picture at the beginning of the season, even though it says we were the Pacific League champions. So I'm sitting there at 225. I then start losing weight, going back and doing things. This time, in 87, I get down to 175 pounds. This is me standing with my younger brother, having a conversation about why he's getting caught punching people and getting kicked out. Notice I didn't tell him to stop doing it. I told him to stop getting caught doing it. But this is the last picture of me under 200 pounds. This is 1987. And this Drew, well, he's gotten a little smarter. Anorexia is not something I can continue to do. I do need to eat something. So I decide to eat somewhere between 500 and 1,200 calories. Yes, I invented or discovered myself microfasting back in 87. But by 1990, the weight's starting to come back on. That's my swim team, my CIF championship swim team there. And by 93, I was over 250. That's me with my buddy Kurt. By the time I got married in 98, I'm over 300 pounds. But in 2003, and this I'll get to this in a second, in 2003, before my kids were born, I started working out, and this is the closest I came as an adult to actually solving my weight problem. The problem there with him is, so he's microfasting, he's using keto, he's using a bunch of other techniques that I'll talk about here later, but I was also working out quite a bit. And I discovered that every time I stood up from my desk, I was doing 4 miles a day walking. And every time I stood up from my desk, my knee would lock up. And I ended up having a torn meniscus, and my diet just went out the window. And this was another profound lesson that I learned, was you can't outwork out your diet. If you're working out to lose weight, you're doing it wrong. You should work out because you enjoy it. You could work out to become better, stronger, faster, do a sport better. But to specifically lose weight, because there will be times that you become injured, and then what? You've got to learn to control your diet. And this was what I learned there. Fast forward 10 years, I'm now 375 in 2013. The picture on the far right there is me with Brian Kreutzkamp. He was coaching the Stanford club team at the time, and he was one of my very first students teams that I coached for. Um, Fast forward another 10 years, almost 10 years, July 2022. So I've mentioned that I came in August 2022 to kill myself. This is the only picture I have of me at weight, at peak weight. Um, as I'm estimating now, I was over 500, close to 550 pounds. And you may ask, why do I estimate? It's because there's no scales that really weigh anything over 450 pounds. They're just not, at least the ones I could afford. Um, the next picture is November 2022. This is me after the incident and after the diet started working. At this point, I thought I had lost about 50 pounds, which I did, but I didn't realize how much weight I had gained during COVID, and I'll get to that in a second. And I'll get to the rest of the pictures of October 23 through now. This is just me over the years, just showing you that it works, and I actually did lose the weight. Which leads me to the second question I always get. What was it like to be over 500 pounds? Well, absolutely nothing like those stupid morning shows where they put on the samurai suit and say, oh, I've gained 100 pounds. Oh, it's so hard to move. Um, in fact, what it's like to be 500 pounds is you don't really feel the weight. It's more anaerobic. It's more, you're just tired existing. I tell people it's like mile 21 of a marathon, where you are about to die, you're about to puke, you're about to collapse. That's what it's like to be 550 pounds and move. The other thing is pinching. I remember a lot of pinching, mostly because your balloon's all over your body. So whether you're wearing socks, it would have to pinch your legs. If you're wearing a belt, it has to pinch your stomach and your arms. And it was just pinching all over the place. My knees hurt, and I had really bad gout. And if you never had gout, imagine taking a big, large roof nail or spike and putting it underneath your heel, or your big toe, and have it jammed in every time you moved. It's not good. It feels bad. So if you do want to know what it's like to be over 550 pounds, go run a marathon wearing clothes 2 sizes too small for you. At mile 21, start pinching yourself all over your body and place a nail underneath your foot. That is what I was experiencing. That was just waking up. God forbid if I had to move. So, a little bit of context and background of where I am. I've estimated I've lost over, prior to starting the diet in August 2022, I had lost over 1,000 pounds. My problem is I gained 1,250. And every time at that point in 22, everything I tried, any diet I used to try, keto was my favorite. The second I thought about losing weight, my gout would flare up. And it would go from foot to foot. One week it'd be this foot. I'd have maybe a week off. Next week it'd be the other foot. The third question I usually get, though, is what would I say to Drew sitting in that room? And this is a little bit hard for me to answer because I've got to answer it in 2 different ways. I knew and I've known all my entire life that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. But what happens if you don't think it's temporary anymore? I literally had gotten to the point where I thought I could no longer lose weight, that I was just going to continue to get fatter, continue to have pain. And the pain from opening my eyes, the second that mile 21 hit, that was level 5 on that pain scale you see at the hospital. And the more I moved throughout the day, it would go to level 10. And it really just became, for me, sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional. It became too much. My life was just pain. That's all I had. And I couldn't take the pain anymore. So as I mentioned, I walked into that hotel room in August 2022. I had spent the whole entire day drinking with my good college and high school friends. I actually helped set it up. I spent months setting this up. It was the end of lockdowns, COVID, and we were going to have a party to celebrate all the parties that we missed over the lockdown. So I get done, I walk in, they drop me off, I walk in the hotel room. And I remember sitting on the bed, much like I am now, with my hands crossed and my arms resting on my knees, and thinking about what I was just about to do. And I paused for a second to think about my kids and my family and what I was going to do to them. And then I remember, okay, and I'm not making up this next part. This is what I remember right after that. So I remember thinking about my kids. I remember saying okay. And the next thing I know, I'm laying down with my back on the bed, my feet in exactly the same spot they were, my hands clasped exactly as they were, like I just fell straight back. It was morning and the sun was coming up. And it was that deep sleep where you don't really know who you are or where you are or what you are. And I remember opening my eyes and instantly, mile 21, pinching, pain, level 5, and I'm pissed. What the hell just happened? How am I still here? This was not the deal. I had spent all this time doing it. Now I'm going to pause for a second there. And I've thought about this over the years is if I was so set on doing it, why didn't I just do it at that point after I woke up? I don't have an answer to that. All I know is at that time when I woke up, I needed to get out of that room. So I grabbed everything, got in my car, and drove home. The drive home, my subconscious is having a field day with me. And this happens over the next 2 weeks. This is where I start realizing my subconscious wants to kill me. My subconscious hates me. And if you ever want to know what my subconscious actually, I'm going to scroll back here for a second. Come on, Drew. If you ever want to know what my subconscious thought about me, take a look at that picture. That is exactly what my subconscious felt I was. I was fat. I was lazy. I was a wimp. I was, you name it, my subconscious was telling me it. So I'm starting to listen to what my subconscious is actually saying, and it's sitting there and it's just pounding me. You are so pathetic, Drew. You can't even kill yourself. You are such a wimp. You're a fucking joke. Pardon my language, but that's really what was going on in my head. So 2 weeks later, I'm sitting on the couch and I'm debating on whether I'm going to make another run at this. Again, I'm still in pain. I'm still hurting. I can't take this anymore. I literally cannot take the pain anymore. Um, and just at that moment, my youngest son starts walking down the stairs. And I get this thought from the other side of my head, who'd been silent all these years. But this thought on the other side of my head goes, you've done good. You've saved him a lot of pain. And that's when brain bias or cognitive dissonance, whatever you want to call it, kind of kicks into place. Because I remember when my kids were born, for the first time in my life, I knew for 100% absolute fact that I'd run into fire to save them. I would jump in and take a bullet. Not saying I wouldn't do that for you. I more than likely would do that for you. But for my kids, I knew absolutely I would do it. And this thought goes on more and says, well, isn't it your job as a father to save them from pain? And that if that meant you sticking to your pain or taking the pain to save them pain, isn't that what you're supposed to do? And that was like someone punched me in the gut. So at that point, I make a decision, okay, I'm going to stick around. I obviously cannot keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to make my life just slightly a little bit better every day. Well, okay, now what do I do? As I'm coming to this thought of, okay, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to make my life a little bit better. As my friends know, I love watching random documentaries. And I have Curiosity Stream on all the time. And at this particular time, I was watching this episode of the show called Dynamic Genomes. And Dynamic Genomes, what it was about was that, when I was a kid, we were taught that we only use 2% of our DNA. that the other 98% was what they call junk DNA. Well, dynamic genome was showing us that that's no longer the case, that we know that this other 98% is what they call non-coding DNA, which means it doesn't do this stuff, but it helps turn gene expression or epigenome on or off. And specifically, it was talking about, at this second, if your father basically was a glutton when you were born, he passed on one of these toggle switches that made you 20% more likely to gain weight on less food. And that surprised me because I used to joke that I just stared at a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I'd gain weight. I'm not lying. Yes, I was a fat swimmer. I was eating less than them, the Greek Adonises, but yet I was still heavy. And so suddenly I have this thing where I bet you that's turned on. I bet you I have that. And then looking at it, I was like, oh, toggle switches, zeros and one. That looks familiar. And I remember making a joke that, well, too bad the human body isn't a computer, because I have yet to find a computer problem I couldn't solve. And I stopped for a second and went, yeah, you know what? You've never really approached this as a computer problem. You've never really unleashed your computer mind on your body, on your weight problem. So at that moment, I decided, yeah, I'm going to start doing it. I mean, it was obviously, I had no idea how to operate this thing. But it gets me to my next question is, why do I call it hacking the fat man? And it's really hacking the fat man because I unleashed my hacking thought process on my body, and have found success with it. As I mentioned, it's obvious I did not know how to operate this machine. I realized I had no idea what it is or what it's supposed to be doing. So the first thing of hacking is you gather information, right? And information isn't about just what it is. It's about what's it telling you. So error messages are valuable or could be valuable. So what do I think this is going on, and why do I think it's going on? So the first hack I had, looking at the error messages in my body, was I knew that gout was a serious problem. But gout wasn't just by itself. I had inflammation problems. I had allergies. So I really went after inflammation. And I started with 3 supplements for the inflammation. Beets, good for inflammation. Cinnamon, good for inflammation. And then my younger brother told me about tart cherry, which is great for gout. Now, this was not a miracle cure. I didn't take the first couple of supplements and it all went away. But what I noticed was, after a period of a couple of weeks or a month, was my gout attacks and the inflammation were getting less, maybe less severe. They weren't lasting as long, and the period between them started growing. And it's progressed to the point where I can't even remember the last time I actually had a gout attack. The other thing I noticed after this was starting was that my clothes were fitting a little looser. That I had started losing. Well, I hadn't even started a diet yet. The only thing I've added was those 3 supplements. And it's entirely attributed to the fact that I was moving better. I could get up and move. I was in less pain. So I'm going to stop here, and I got a question for all of you. I'm assuming some of you have worked out. Some of you have most everyone has worked out. Do you do the same workouts every single day? No. You don't do the same workouts every single day. And the reason is if you try to do the same workout every single day, your body gets used to it. And so the benefit of doing it starts to be less and less and less. The body just starts going, yep, I'm used to that, and doesn't give a real benefit of it. You need to change it up, keep the body guessing. So why do we diet the same way every day? I'm on keto, I'm on the Mediterranean, I'm on the Miami diet, you pick it. Weight Watchers, why do we try to diet the same way every single day? It's crazy. This talk started both from the fact that I wanted to understand how I got out of that room, but also to make sure I understood why the diet was actually working and continuing to work. The idea of the diet, the full diet, started from what I have learned from previous failures. As I mentioned, at this point I had lost over 1,000 pounds. I had tried every single diet under the sun. Once you look at that, though, most diets are pretty much the same. It's a ratio between fat, protein, and carbs. And whether it's keto, which is heavy protein, zero carbs, some fat, or the Mediterranean, which is high carbs, a little bit of protein, very little fat. You can put them together by this ratio. So diets I've tried. I know you can't read that. It's small on my screen too. The first one was low fat, non-fat. Stupidest diet ever in the entire world, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. You're just replacing fat with sugar. Completely asinine. Um, First diet I actually did, started this at the Atkins. It was called Atkins when I was in the 80s, but it's effectively keto. And I did that in my teens. A lot of that in um, 87, that picture I showed you where I was microfasting, it was pretty much a Atkins heavy kind of diet. Um, the zone diet I discovered out of Stanford Swimming back in the mid 80s. They were using it, and this is your 60% or sorry, 40% carbs, 30% fat, 30% protein, and then modify the ratios. Um, yeah, that's right. I I've also tried the Mediterranean diet. Love it. It's good. I actually consider the Mediterranean, I call that a modified zone to have more protein. So instead of being carb heavy, the zone is initially carb heavy. Switch that around and have it protein heavy. Um, Doctor's Health Care, great diet. I felt awesome on it. Almost impossible to stay on. Dr. Sears developed this diet, and it's hardcore vegan, no animal protein at all, and the worst part was no oil. Do you know how many things have oil in them? Salsa, bread. There's a bunch of things that have oil in it, and it made that diet absolutely impossible. But the good thing I learned out of that diet was it's physically impossible to eat 2,000 calories of raw green vegetables a day. You have to start in the morning, and you would never get even close to 2,000 calories. The other one, I call it the sumo diet, but so sumo wrestlers, so microfasting, good, right? But if you go microfasting and you eat 7,000 calories, you're going to look like a sumo wrestler. Now, I hated breakfast. Every time I ate, I got sleepy. So that microfasting that I was doing to lose weight ended up being the sumo wrestler diet, and you could tell from the pictures that's exactly what I did to myself. I would eat not seven, I'd eat about 5 to 6,000 calories at night just before I went to bed. Remember, eating makes me go to sleep. And I ended up looking like a sumo wrestler. The other one I'm going to add here is the juice cleanse. This was something in the early aughts that became popular. I actually really enjoyed the juice cleanse because it's really just adds citric acid or juice to your water. And vitamin C is my body operates on vitamin C. So I actually did well on this. And I'll talk a little bit about how I use the juice cleanse coming up. So from these past experiences, I started developing the diet. So I'm taking the 3 supplements. I'm going to start implementing the diet. And I had a couple of issues still, right? If I stayed in ketosis too long, my gout would flare up. So I couldn't do keto all the time. If I wanted to lose weight, fasting is good, but fasting is technically keto, and you can only do that so long as well. And I also got into reasons why my diet failed. One was sticking to the same thing over and over. Even in keto diet, I got tired of bacon. How do you get tired of bacon? But by eating the same thing over and over again, it gets boring. Um, the other one that hit me a lot, failure, was travel. Was especially with this Dr. Sears diet, was when you travel, getting access to the food can be problematic. and traveling almost always caused me problems. So I came up with some ideas around what this diet framework should look like. First thing is, it's not really a diet, it's a life cycle change. I have to not only can do it, I need to want to do it. It needs to bring me joy, which means I need to eat things that bring me joy. Um, it should be as simple as breathing. If it gives you joy, it's pretty simple, right? And I don't want to plan. I don't want to do any real planning. I have no idea what I want today when I wake up. I have no idea what I'm going to have for dinner right now. I won't know until I get up to make dinner what I'll eat. There's no meal prepping. I hate meal prepping. I know some of you love it. Good on you. I'm not meal prepping. Again, coming back to the fact that I don't really know what I'm going to eat, so why am I meal prepping? Um, there's also no tracking of calories. I do it all kind of on guessing a little bit, but I build in buffers for it. So I start with 1,800 calories as my max instead of 2,000. Gives me a little bit of buffer there. And then yeah, I just kind of judge from the meal. I've been doing this a lot. I can know that meal was about 500, 600 calories, which is the perfect spot for me that I try to hit on every meal is about 500 to 600 calories. Um, the other thing, and this goes back to the anorexia side, was that I can only do one day of true fasting with that means not eating anything and maybe 1 or 2 days of micro fasting that I'm not going to keep trying to push myself longer than that even though I may feel like it. Vegetables are free, but it's important to understand what a vegetable is. Tomatoes are a fruit, corn is a seed. When in doubt, stay with your green leafy vegetables. And also that from a pure dietitian standpoint, 1,800 calories or whatever your expenditure is for the day, do less than that, and you'll lose weight. It gets better if you spread the calories that you have out over the day, and including breakfast. Well, I've told you I hate breakfast. I've actually added in the juice diet because it's about 5 to 10 calories per drink in the morning to help me get started, not only with the breakfast, getting calories in my system, also my supplements have calories in and of themselves, and I have morning supplements and evening supplements, and I'll get to those in a bit. But it helps me spread out the calories, helps me keep the body, even on fast days, doing the juice fast, the body from totally trying to save every calorie, right? Again, keeping my body guessing. And then the final point I really need to stress is we're going to slip. We're going to mess up. We're going to eat too much. We're going to do something. Forgive yourself. There's no reason to beat yourself up. The only thing that matters is you in the next second. You can't change anything in the past, but you can change what you're about to do. And that's where you need to stay and keep your mind there. So if you messed up in the past, just move forward. The real thing, and this is where the schedule comes in, and the real change is I schedule my types of diet throughout the week. On Mondays, and I start on Monday. Mondays are fast days for me. I'm just not going to eat. I'll do the juice cleanse. I'll take my supplements, but I try to start the week off with yes, I've should be losing weight now. The next Tuesday and maybe into Wednesday, depending on how I'm feeling, I go into microfasting. Tuesday, definitely microfasting. Wednesday, if I'm not really hungry, I'll probably microfast. Wednesday and Thursday, or later in the week into Friday, I go into a keto diet. So protein heavy, very little carbs, very little, and some fat. Uh, Further on in the week, as Friday, Saturday, as we're getting into it, I go into a zone diet, a modified zone. So I'm protein heavy in the modified zone. Again, kind of still keto, but I can add, if I get rice or fries with my steak, I'm fine. And I did this on purpose because Fridays, Saturdays, even Thursdays to some extent, Sundays, are the days we have family events. We have go out for work events. So I wanted to be able to enjoy them without feeling like, hey, you know what, I'm on a diet. I can't go to that. Oh, it's going to be hard because everyone else is eating. I don't have to worry about that. I can enjoy myself as long as I stay under 1,800 calories and be good to go. And then Sunday, I use Sunday as a what happened in the week. So if I was good, Sunday may be a normal day. If I feel like I was bad during the week, not bad, but maybe ate a little bit more than I wanted to, I may do a lighter Sunday as well. Again, the whole point of this schedule is to give you flexibility in your diet. And I'm not specifically sticking to one type of diet. I may wake up on a Tuesday morning microfasting, but for some reason I have some craving of something, right? So microfasting to me is between 500 and 1,200 calories. And whatever the craving is, you want donuts? Have 500 calories of donuts. You're fine. You're going to feel like crap, but you're fine. Most of my cravings usually are something else. I'll get a craving for lasagna or spaghetti or something like that. But as long as I stay between 500 and 1,200 calories, I'm microfasting, I'm good to go. And the same's true for the rest of the time. If it's Wednesday or Thursday and I'm supposed to be doing keto, but I want the steak and fries, I'll have the steak and fries. That's not keto. That's the modified zone. But I'll go ahead and have them because I felt like having them. The point is, it's got to bring me joy, and it cannot feel like work. The other big hack I did was, I've talked a little bit about the first three: tart cherry, cinnamon, and beets. Those were the first three supplements I've done, but I've since added a bunch of them. And if you read through this list, and I'm going to put this in the supplement list in an attachment that you can download, but the first three, and if you read through all of these, they're almost all going for inflammation. Because I still, even to this day, struggle with inflammation. Gout's gone, but I still struggle with swelling in my legs and some other places. The hydroxymethylbutyrate, which I hadn't talked about before, HMB, that's a rock star drug, or not drug, but supplement. So what HMB does is, it protects muscle regardless of whether you're losing weight or gaining weight. And what I mean by that is, normally when we lose weight, our body will burn on average about the same amount of muscle to fat, right? So 50% of your weight loss is fat, 50% is muscle. The problem with losing muscle is muscle burns calories. So if you're losing weight or losing muscles, that means tomorrow you're going to, just existing, spend less calories. H&B will protect the muscle, keep you from burning it as part if you're losing weight, and make you burn more fat. That's awesome. If you overeat, if you overconsume, H&B, instead of your body, again, it's about 50-50, maybe a little bit more fat for me specifically. So if you overeat, H&B makes you create more muscle and have less of that calories go into fat. So it's a dual-sided thing. Rockstar, I highly recommend it. I'm doing well. Again, with all these supplements, I am not a doctor. I am not even a medical professional. I am someone who's hacking his body. So take it for what it is. Go make sure you talk to your doctor or pharmacist with any of the supplements that you take. K2 and D3, those are just... I discovered K2 from taking antihistamines. If I couldn't take more than one antihistamine a day, or every other day, because if I took it for 2 days in a row, I would get restless leg syndrome. And K2, D3, and a couple other ones, I'll highlight them, and turmeric is one of them, are good for helping solving the restless leg syndrome problem. And what restless leg is especially when you're going to sleep, your legs twitch like that. Now imagine gout and you're trying to go to sleep. And I couldn't keep taking the antihistamines because it would cause it. So K2, D3, good solid stuff. Again, they help with inflammation. Omega 369 is your fish oils. Good there. Turmeric I talked to a little bit. Vitamin C, absolutely love vitamin C. And magnesium glycinate is also on the list. And again, it does really help with improved sleep and anxiety reduction. In addition, I've added glucosamine chondroitin. I should learn to say these things right, which is for my knees. My knees are bad, as well as the collagen, the same. The Lactobacillus plantarum was part of that restless leg syndrome solution. I've since also added creatine, filistin, and nicotinamide riboside. And I've also TMG, beta carotene, hydraulic acid, and Zyrtec. Now that I've solved my restless leg syndrome, I can now take a antihistamine daily. So I take Zyrtec daily. So that's the diet and the hacks with the supplements. So I've covered the diet, I've covered the schedule, covered what got me into the room, what got me out of the room. But there's one more hack I need to address. So before I got into the specifics of the diet, I had taken you up to about me in November 2022, which is that picture there. That Drew, he's lost 50 pounds. He's feeling good. In fact, he's feeling so good, he went and got a haircut for the first time in 3 years, bought new clothes, and actually went out to a work dinner. I continue to lose weight over the next few months, and I'm feeling so good that I decided to go in and get my physical that I hadn't had in 3 years. The last time I had a physical was January 2020, and I'd weighed 425 pounds. I was so confident, I was pretty sure I'd already lost all my COVID weight. I'm good. I was expecting to weigh 425 pounds. I walk into the doctor's office, I stand on the scale, and I'm 479. And it hits me. I had been well over 500, closer to 550, maybe even over 550 pounds. If I think I've lost 50 to 75 pounds and I'm now sitting at 479, that was bad. And then the news got worse. The doc looks at me and tells me I've got an abdominal hernia and I need to get it operated or else it's going to cause me a lot of problems. And he sends me to a surgeon who tells me I'm too fat to operate on. She recommends putting me on Zepbound and Manjaro, which is now called Zepbound. So this is March 2023. This is actually me on the way to the surgeon. And I weighed 469 pounds at the surgeon's office. So even between the end of January physical to the early March surgical appointment, I had lost an additional 10 pounds. So in March 23, I start taking Manjaro Zepbound. Now, I'm going to stop here for a second because it's not on the slides. I didn't bring up that I've been taking Zepbound. I'm going to sit here and tell you that Zepbound's the greatest drug mankind's ever made, and I'm going to get into why here in a second. Because I don't want people just dismissing the diet because, oh, you took Zepbound, of course the diet worked. That's not it. I just finished describing that I had lost almost the initial 100 pounds off the diet without the Zepbound. Zepbound helps. It helps fantastically. But it isn't... I have tried every diet pill or substance that you can imagine, and you can blow through it. I've seen people blow through gastric bypass, where they continue to eat and gain their weight back, even though they've cut out half their intestine. So in March 2023, I started taking Manjaro and Zepbound. I noticed that my appetite was less, and I start to lose weight, or continue to lose weight, over the next couple of weeks and months. But I ended up down in San Diego for a company event. And I've mentioned in the past that travel it can sometimes knock me off my diet. But also work stress or personal stress is another reason diet fail. And I got both down in San Diego. I'm having some problems at work. I'm frustrated. And I'm traveling. And I just decided to order my meal. Now my meal... my comfort meal, my go-to, just screw it, I'm going to eat whatever I want meal, was a McDonald's two double quarter pounders with cheese, 2 large fries, and 2 Diet Cokes. I order this meal, I get it sent to my room, and I take the first 2-3 bites of the first quarter pounder, and then for the first time in my entire life, my body says, "Hey, you know what? You're good. You don't need to eat anymore." And I'm shocked. I am literally sitting there going, "What the heck is this?" I had never been satisfied eating something before. Never. I had been full, right? Where literally I could not put something else in there. But that sense of satisfaction, okay, you're done. You don't need to eat anymore. It was shocking. And I've talked to others who have struggled with weight their whole life, who've been on an Ozempic or other GLP-1 to drugs, and they've all said the same thing, that they never had a sense of satisfaction eating. And this is important. Well, actually, I'll get to why it's important here coming up. So let me pause for a second here. And little old school slouch trap or flame war here. That sense of satisfaction is important because if you're a thin person and you're making recommendations on what a overweight person should do, like, oh, I don't know, oh, you know what you need to do is just eat a little bit and wait 20 minutes to see if you're still hungry. Well, I've just told you that I've never had a feeling of satisfaction, so I'm always hungry. I was always hungry. So that advice doesn't work. So I want you all to know, if you're thin and never have struggled with your weight, you don't get to give advice to us anymore. Because you're literally a genetically advanced creature. You're a chimpanzee trying to explain to a frog or a salamander how to climb a tree. It's not the same. We're not the same. Just support me in my weight loss, support others in their weight loss, but you don't need to give advice because what you experience is not what we experience. At this point, I'll get off my soapbox and let's get back to the talk. So, what is this feeling of satisfaction? I literally took the whole bag of food and I threw it in the trash can. And this is where it suddenly hit me was it had nothing to do with my willpower. It had nothing. I actually had strong willpower. The fact that I was able to fluctuate my weight. If I got this sense of satisfaction, it made dieting so much easier. And it allowed me to forgive myself. I realized it was a chemical imbalance. Some doctor may argue with me that it's not chemical, but it doesn't matter. Whatever this drug is doing to give me that sense of satisfaction helped solve my depression. Because my depression was directly rooted in the fact that I could not control my weight, that I did not have the willpower to control my weight. And then I found out that it had nothing to do with willpower. I would hate myself. I hated myself so much for that lack of willpower or control that I just detested myself. You can see from that picture that I showed you on the driver's license one. I would derive all of my self-worth from external things, from being a water polo player or a swimmer, or being really good in computers, or the friends that I kept and talked with. But discovering this allowed my depression just melted away because I know I could forgive myself. It was a disease. It was outside of my control. So this brings us to today. Now, actually, today is June 1st, 2025. That's the picture of me last month that I took there, where I'm still 233. I was 233 then. I'm still 233 today. I plateau once in a while. We'll get into plateauing and that type of thing in further talks. I hope to, again, my goal is to reach 175. I'm hoping that you stick around and join me on this journey as I continue to lose weight and get it all down. And that completes the first episode of Hacking the Fat Man. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you in episode 2 and further on down the pine. Thanks.